This week on Arizona Illustrated, psychedelics and mental health.
I think the drug offers a moment to step back and step out of that and see things differently. I mean, put quite simply, it helps people get unstuck.
USS Arizona Survivor Lauren Bruner passes away.
Here's the USS Arizona. I've never seen anything that big as a float.
And Mosh for mental health.
Just to get that kind of icky feeling out of you, sometimes you need to scream about it.
Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Mental health disorders in America are on the rise, particularly among young people. Looking for new answers, major U.S. universities like Johns Hopkins have launched groundbreaking research focused on psychedelic substances and their potential impacts on mental health. The University of Arizona here in Tucson is in the midst of a major study involving psilocybin, or magic mushrooms, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. This is the Psychodelic Reset.
I've been trying to figure out what was wrong with me for a long time. I just honestly thought everybody's brain worked the same as mine. I was just kind of a wimp, it's kind of a wuss. I have obsessive thoughts. And then the compulsive stuff, the physical compulsions, like for example, taking my dog to the park and he goes number 2 and I'm like, oh, I don't want to touch that, but I gotta do, so I pick it up and the rest of the way, and I throw it away, then the rest I'm like, I gotta get home, wash my hands, and I was just kind of getting worse and worse, and I was getting more obsessive, more confused, more stressed out, more anxious, more depressed at different times. And just like a million of other people, I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he always talks about psychedelics.
High on 20 grams of mushrooms, hugging a tree.
And I stopped stuttering in one day.
Whoa.
And this speaks to now what was been medically proven is that we can reset the neurology of the human brain.
And I was like, wow, okay, maybe there's some sense to this. Maybe it makes some more sense. Maybe I gotta be a little more open-minded to other things, because I'd been taking, for anxiety and depression, I'd taken a lot of other medications, and none of them really did anything for OCD. So I went to clinicaltrial.gov and typed in psilocybin. Just misspelled it 7 times, but I finally got it right. Then the one popped up in Tucson, and it was potentially recruiting people in a few months. And then, I kept it on my computer for literally a year, and I'd refreshed it every Monday. And then one Monday I went into work and I refreshed it, and it's now looking for recruits actively. But I emailed them, I said, hey, I'm interested. Had a phone screening, ultimately went down there once for a 3-hour pre-screening. And I was in. I was scoring pretty high on the OCD scale, so.
So one of the problems that all of us face is knowing, did we do something right, or conversely, did we do something wrong? And if something we do doesn't match up with our expectation, we get a signal that says you made an error. One of the troubles in OCD is that this signal's a little too strong. So we think about there being kind of a hyperactive error monitoring signal in obsessive compulsive disorder. So this task is a very simple task that's designed to make people make errors. And what we see in patients with OCD is this error signal is stronger.
During the early 1990s, I had a patient in our clinic who was having trouble with obsessive compulsive disorder. He was able to relate to us that during a period of time when this person was using drugs of different kinds, he noticed that when using freeze-dried psilocybin mushrooms, his obsessive compulsive disorder got dramatically better. And so based on that, we decided to go ahead and pursue a study of psilocybin. At the time, there hadn't been any other studies of psilocybin or LSD in a clinical setting in close to 3 decades.
Dr. Moreno was a pioneer in being able to do this kind of research when he ran the first study over a decade ago. There's been the promise of psychedelics for changing people's symptoms for a very long time. The drugs got stigmatized, they were seen as having no medical value.
There's a medical risk to the brain and body. Perhaps the biggest risk is the placing of the psyche in peril.
I'm like not exaggerating at all. I like never did drugs. I like never drank. I grew up like really religious, like really, you know, in conservative type household. I'd like watch some YouTube videos and stuff, like people explaining it, and this is what might happen, you gotta be ready, this is what you might see.
What is this alien technology and how do I use these human hands again? So it was very complicated. It's like every 5 seconds I'd forget where I was.
Psychedelic drugs are very powerful substances. For millennia, indigenous cultures have used them in the context of traditional spiritual practices. Psilocybin is just one of them.
The way it's set up is there's 8 visits. 4 of them are placebos, 2 of them are low dose, and 2 of them are high dose. And so the first week I get a pill and I'm sitting there and I'm like waiting for the good stuff. And then like 30, 45 minutes, an hour goes by and I'm sitting there as if I just taken a Tylenol. So I have to sit there for literally like 12 hours. So next week I go back week 2. Week 2, nothing happened, same thing. And then week 3, I go in there, nothing again. I'm like 3 weeks in a row, and I'm kind of getting pissed at this point. And so week 4, nothing again. And I'm getting more stressed, I'm getting more anxious. I feel like my OCD is like spiraling out of control. And then so week 5, he gives me a pill, and I'm laying there like 15, 20 minutes go by, and like 30 minutes, all of a ssudden like my spine just starts tingling. My brain starts tingling. It's like on Star Wars when they hit light speed, and like all the lights just start flying by you, and I was like, oh my God.
The rationale for introducing imaging is so we can actually see what's going on in the brain before the trial starts, midway through the trial, and at the end of the trial. This is a technique called diffusion tensor imaging. It actually looks at the white matter tracks in the brain, so it tells you how different parts of the brains are connected to each other.
So this is what normal state of consciousness looks like after someone was given a placebo or a sugar pill. This is what the brain looks like under the acute influence of psilocybin or magic mushrooms. The brain sort of is shaken up and sort of rewired, right? So a lot of these regions that before weren't talking to one another are now talking at excess. And so you can kind of think about this as adding a lot of flexibility to your brain and resetting your brain.
There's like a river and a rainbow of just like a gazillion colors that you can't explain. And it was like flowing over me, and I just felt amazing. And you're in a different dimension, I guess, more or less, whatever that means. And so like my dad is 84. He's got dementia real bad right now. And so he's at a point where he's starting to shut down. Like he's having a hard time talking, a lot of things. So I had this experience where my dad came to me like totally like coherent. And I'm like, it's like super corny. I want to get like emotional, but like my dad came to me and he just like gave me a hug. He's like, hey, how's it going? I was like, hey, Dad. And we just like had a conversation like we did like 20 years ago. And he's like, I'm proud of you. I was like, so then he kind of just like walked off, and it was like it's kind of like I got to say goodbye to him. So yeah, I don't know how it works. Like if that's something I wanted or something that existed in some other realm. That was the first experience.
And put quite simply, it helps people get unstuck. I think people don't get into these situations that are so distressing overnight, right? But once they're there, these can kind of take on a life of their own and self-perpetuate. And I think the drug offers a moment to step back and step out of that and see things differently.
The obsessive thinking, which was the biggest problem I had, it went from like 100, on a scale of 1 to 100, I was like 99. It went down to probably like 20. It felt like you could like physically see whatever the compulsion was, and it kind of like, you like almost would see like this obsessive thing like dissipate.
If you just think about the impact for the amount of time invested, what else could possibly be this strong?
You don't often see something in psychiatry that will pretty immediately change an individual's symptoms that haven't been changed for years.
I'm hopeful that it gets mainstreamed because, you know, if somebody can get the same experience I had, the same help, the same benefit, yeah, that would be awesome. I mean, who doesn't want people to be happier?
On Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, December 7th, 2020, the remains of Lauren Bruner were interred on the sunken warship USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Bruner was a young sailor when the surprise attack was launched on Pearl Harbor in 1941. He was one of the last to get off the USS Arizona alive. Bruner passed away in September of last year at the age of 98. Here's a look back at our story about him when he came to Tucson. This is USS Arizona Survivor.
His name is Lauren Bruner. He's a World War II Navy veteran and survivor of the attack on Pearl Harbor. He's here at the University of Arizona to help commemorate the 75th anniversary of the attack that marked day one of all-out U.S. involvement in World War II.
6 torpedoes from each of our destroyers. So there's 12 of them coming right at their fleet.
The 96-year-old is one of a handful of survivors from the battleship USS Arizona who is still alive. He's here with this group of Navy and Marine ROTC students, taking questions and sharing his story.
You got to expect it. Someday. Maybe not. I hope not.
Aaron Clayton from Spring, Texas, is a naval officer candidate pursuing his degree at the University of Arizona.
Not just read about it, not just see it on the TV, but to have history right there in front of you, talking to you, that's truly an amazing experience. He just has a ton of life still left in him, and it's just amazing knowing what he went through that day, seeing where he is in his life right now.
Thank you, sir, for everything you've taught us.
One of those heroes that you never would know about unless someone told you.
Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to carrying on your legacy.
Bruner joined the Navy shortly after graduating from Alma High School, just west of Olympia, Washington. After boot camp in San Diego, he received his orders.
Here's the USS Arizona. I'd never seen anything that big to float. So that was quite a thing to get aboard something like that.
Arizona was granted statehood in 1912, becoming the 48th state in the Union. It also became the namesake for the USS Arizona, launched out of New York, June 19, 1915. As with all new sailors aboard a ship, he was assigned to the deck force.
You're clean and sweep and all of the decks, paintwork and all. Keep everything nice and shiny.
Several months later, another sailor would report to the USS Arizona. His best friend and high school classmate, William Mann.
So I always called him Billy. I didn't know he was even interested in coming in until one day ship pulled back down into Long Beach, California. Out on the deck cleaning up, one guy picked me up on the shoulder and said, "Hey," he says, "I'm here." Looked around, here's Billy. Billy Mann. Oh, we had a great life. And we got time off. We'd go over the beach together, go around and try to find some girls. And we found lots of them.
Both men would promote into new roles. Billy Mann became a gunner's mate, Bruner a fire controlman in charge of directing the 50 caliber guns on board.
Anti-aircraft gunnery system. That was it, working with the guns, the big 14-inch guns.
During his visit to Tucson, Bruner met with student athletes at the U of A, imparting some of that bear-down spirit that coaches preach and players love to hear.
I hope you guys have one hell of a good game tomorrow.
He also made his way to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base to visit with pilots and crew of the 47th Fighter Squadron. Pilots from the 47th shot down more than half a dozen Japanese warplanes during the Pearl Harbor attack. Here, they share war stories, past and present, finding common bonds that only those who serve can fully understand. The next night at Arizona Stadium, the U of A pays tribute to the USS Arizona and World War II veterans as the 75th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor approaches. Lauren Bruner, wearing a custom-made number 75 team jersey, is honored throughout the game as the Wildcats face off with Hawaii's Rainbow Warriors.
Nice summery day, Sunday.
It was just before 8 a.m., and he was getting ready to attend church services on the ship.
After church, I had a date to meet a little gal over on the beach. Her name was Nikki. Never got to see her.
The USS Arizona's loudspeaker came on.
All hands on deck. Man your battle stations. This is not a drill.
The surprise attack came in two waves, bombing grounded U.S. planes at airfields around Pearl Harbor and the U.S. fleet in Battleship Row. Bruner had reached the fourth deck and had one more to go.
Well, I looked up the channel, and I could see these planes coming in. They were coming in shooting, and there was just ammunition coming all over the place.
He was shot twice in the leg by machine gun fire from a Japanese fighter.
One big dive, and I made that 5-foot entry right into my battle station.
The enemy had struck, and he was close.
He just closed up sideways, swung around the front of the ship, between the ships. Big old grin on his face, mouth wide open. I could see all those teeth. You want to reach out and bust him one. But then all heck broke loose after that.
Japanese bombers hit the Arizona 4 times with their bombs.
And one of the bombs hit the number 2 turret, which is under my feet and about 20 feet ahead of it.
That 1,700-pound bomb glanced off the turret and dove 3 decks below, into the forward powder magazine on the starboard side of the ship.
Which, unfortunately, was where my buddy, Billy Mann, that was his station. It just blew the heck out of everything, lifted that whole bow, to say about 30 feet off of the water. It had one hell of a fire.
Moored on the port side of the Arizona was a repair ship, the USS Vestal. Crew from the Vestal threw a rope to a position on the forward mast, where Bruner and 5 shipmates were stranded.
And we tied that to it, and my 6 people crossed that line.
Lauren Bruner was the second to the last to leave the USS Arizona. Shot by enemy fire and burned over 70% of his body, he crossed that line hand over hand nearly 100 feet, charred and bloodied, but undefeated. 2,335 military personnel died at Pearl Harbor. 1,177 sailors and Marines were killed on the USS Arizona. Lauren Bruner was awarded the Purple Heart, and after recovering from his wounds, he reported to the USS Coghlan, fighting in 8 more major battles.
It's got to be known to the younger ones. You have to remember who was there, their fellow men, some of who got through okay, but who were brave enough to stick around and finish it out.
Like what you see on Arizona Illustrated? Visit our webpage at azpm.org to watch and share stories from this and previous episodes. And like us on Facebook, where you can watch stories, comment, and share your own story ideas. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram, where we share photos and links about the show and what's happening in our community.
What happens when two friends merge their love for metal and punk with a desire to help others? The Mosh for Mental Health, a benefit concert and costume parade dedicated to local nonprofits that provide mental health services. Now we take you into the mosh pit and into the lives of two inspired women who pull off this annual event and have no plans to stop.
Just to get that like kind of icky feeling out of you, sometimes you need to scream about it. And that's where metal comes in.
Seeing these bands and listening to them play their heart out and not really caring who they are, what they do, but all they're doing right at this moment is rocking out. It's just fun and lively, and it kind of brings like life to you too.
Give it up for Rachel and Laura!
So, as you know, my name is Rachel Fernandez, and then this is Laura O'Mara, and we are the creators of Mosh for Mental Health.
So the Mosh for Mental Health is an annual event that we throw, and we pick a charity every year that focuses on mental health, and we throw them a benefit show. So all of our ticket sales, all of our auction, all of our silent auction raffles, all that money goes to this charity that we pick. And not only does the money go there, but we get to go and have this concert and talk about mental health with our peers and not be ashamed of it, and really just get out there that we are all going through this together.
So just make sure you guys just have fun, buy things, buy drinks, buy shirts, buy raffles, buy the silent auction starts at $15. Make sure you buy them. Come on, guys. And get this party going. And I want to see some freaking moshing, man.
Really quickly, do I have any volunteers to go up? Okay. So I'm Rachel Fernandez, and I'm a high school teacher at Santa Rita High School, 9 through 12. I teach theater, student council, and credit recovery.
I'm Laura O'Mara, and I work at the Drunken Chicken.
And how did you two meet? Do you want to take that?
We met in high school randomly through a mutual friend.
Yep.
And just kind of hit it off and been friends ever since.
Right? And then we slowly got to know each other, and then all of a sudden we started dating two people in the same band.
Yeah.
So it was
and
fun.
then randomly enough, my brother-in-law started working at her high school.
Yep.
So just randomly we got super intertwined.
All right, so without further ado, PS9! So I did myself when I went it all before.
Since I was a little kid, I would always go to the Rock. And I would always have fun and see the shows and their battle of the bands. And I started becoming more and more a part of it with a group called Tucson Maidens of Metal. And I started learning more about networking and just kind of the ins and outs, knowing the people, the bands, and that was kind of my startup. And that's honestly how we started the Mosh Mental Health. Was she was like, oh, I want to do this thing, and I was like, yeah, dude, because like mental health, it's in everyone's lives.
Thank you.
Mental health has always affected me. I was diagnosed with high anxiety and high depression probably when I was about 11. And it's always affected me, and for a long time I couldn't leave my house by myself. And I was actually at a facility called Our Place, and their goal is to help people with mental illnesses get back into the working facility. And before you can do that, it's a good place just to come and get comfortable around people. It was just a great community of people, and I just wanted to do anything that I could to help them. And so I hit up Rachel and was like, hey, I think we should throw a benefit concert.
I've dealt with mental health also, like anxiety, depression, and then I also have an eating disorder, which is binge, and also I restrict. So it's just really important to me. And then when Laura said that I wanted to do this, I was like, yeah, that's such a dope idea.
And our first year, we were at the Rialto, and we raised almost $2,000.
Mm-hmm. The show tonight, all the proceeds go to Tunidito. Tunidito is a non-profit organization in Tucson that provides support to children and families impacted by death and serious medical conditions. Are you guys ready for our next band? Let's welcome the Abstract!
It's really nice for me to be able to say hey, you're not alone. And we want you to feel like you can say what your mental illness is without feeling like anyone's going to judge you or attack you or, make you feel like, oh, it's nothing, you're just a little sad, or, you're just thinking too much, and
or be shamed or feel alienated or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're hoping to do it every single year and choose a different beneficiary every year, and hopefully next year we're hoping to get Congress and get into bigger facilities and more people, and then get more awareness and make it into a bigger show and really, really try to help as many people as we can.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.